The first time I saw him, he wasn't smiling. Everyone else was, my mother glowing in white, relatives clapping too loud, strangers calling us family before it felt real. He stood a step behind his father, hands in his pockets, eyes steady and unreadable. My stepbrother. We were introduced like strangers who would never share walls. A handshake that lasted half a second too long. His thumb brushed my knuckle, accidental, or not. I couldn't tell. He didn't look away. "Welcome," he said quietly. Just one word. It settled in my chest like a weight. By nightfall, the house was loud with laughter, wine, and unfamiliar footsteps echoing through hallways I didn't know yet. I slipped out onto the balcony, needing air. Needing distance. That's when I felt it again. That quiet sense of being watched. He was already there, leaning against the railing like the night belonged to him more than the party did. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. Lied. City lights softened his face, made him look less guarded than he had all day. We stood too close. Not touching, but the space between us felt charged, alive. "This is weird," I said, meaning everything. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was dangerous. Someone called his name from inside. He pushed off the railing, brushing past me, his shoulder grazing mine, light and unhurried. I sucked in a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Good night," he said, already walking away. I watched him disappear down the hallway that would soon lead to my room too. Later that night, lying in a bed that still didn't feel like mine, one thought settled deep and unsettling in my chest: the house was quiet. And it already knew our names. Morning made everything worse. Sunlight filled the house like it was proud of itself, bright, unforgiving, exposing every thought I'd tried to bury overnight. Boxes still lined the walls. Wedding decorations hadn't been taken down yet. Proof that this wasn't temporary. Neither was he. I heard him before I saw him. The low sound of his voice in the kitchen, calm, polite, like nothing had shifted inside him at all. Like he hadn't stood too close to me on a balcony hours ago and made silence feel dangerous. I hesitated at the doorway. He turned first. Our eyes met, and something flickered. Quick. Controlled. Gone before anyone else could notice. "Morning," he said. Just that. My mother smiled between us, happy, unaware. "Did you sleep okay?" "Yes," we answered at the same time. The word hung there, wrong in too many ways. We didn't look at each other again while we ate. Still, I felt him, every movement, every breath, like my body was paying attention even when my mind refused to. Later, as I carried boxes upstairs, I felt it again. That awareness. That pull. He was behind me in the hallway. "You shouldn't overthink last night," he said quietly, careful. It was just a moment. I turned. Was it? He didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened. His gaze dropped, then lifted back to mine, steady and serious. "We live here now," he said. "That changes things." "I didn't ask for this," I said. Neither did I. For a second, the hallway felt too small. Too intimate. Like the house was listening again. Then a door opened downstairs. Reality snapped back into place. He stepped away first. But as he passed me, his hand brushed my wrist, brief, almost nothing. Almost. That night, lying awake, I realized something I wasn't ready to admit. Sharing a roof with him wasn't the danger. Pretending I didn't want him was. The house settled into a rhythm that made it worse. Morning coffee. Shared hallways. Quiet nods that meant too much. We learned each other's schedules without meaning to, when he left for work, when I came home, which stairs creaked loudest at night. We avoided each other carefully. Which meant we noticed everything. The first time it almost happened was in the kitchen. I reached for a mug at the same time he did. Our fingers brushed. The contact was brief, accidental, yet my breath hitched like I'd been caught doing something wrong. "Sorry," I said. He didn't pull away immediately. His thumb rested against my knuckle, warm and deliberate. When he finally stepped back, his expression was unreadable. "Be careful," he said. I didn't know if he meant the mug. Or us. Later that evening, the power went out. The house plunged into darkness, sudden and intimate. I froze in the hallway, phone flashlight flickering on just as he appeared in front of me. "You okay?" he asked, too close. I nodded. Again. The light caught his face, sharp and serious. My pulse thudded loud in my ears. We weren't touching, but we weren't not touching either. His hand hovered near my waist, like he was deciding something. For a second, I thought he might cross the line. Instead, he stepped back. The lights came on moments later. The spell broke. But as he walked past me, he murmured, "This is getting harder." That night, I lay awake replaying it all, the almost, the pauses, the restraint. I realized something then. It wasn't the touch that scared me. It was how badly I wanted it. He started avoiding me. Not obviously. Not in a way anyone else would notice. But the house felt different, emptier in the wrong places, louder in the silence he left behind. He woke up earlier. Came home later. If I entered a room, he found a reason to leave it. I told myself I was relieved. I wasn't. At dinner, he kept his eyes on his plate. At breakfast, he was already gone. The careful rhythm we'd fallen into broke, and the absence felt heavier than his presence ever had. One night, I caught him by accident. The hallway light was off. I stepped out of my room and nearly collided with him. He stopped short, breath hitching like he hadn't expected me either. "Sorry," I said. "Don't," he replied too quickly. His voice was strained. Tired. Like he'd been holding something back for too long. "Did I do something?" I asked. He laughed once, short, humorless. "No. That's the problem." The air between us tightened. His hands were clenched at his sides, like he was physically stopping himself from reaching out. "This has to stop," he said quietly. "Before it turns into something we can't undo." My chest ached. "And if it already has?" He looked at me then, really looked. His eyes were dark, conflicted, honest. "Then we pretend it hasn't," he said. Footsteps sounded downstairs. A door closed. The moment fractured. He stepped back first. Always him. That night, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around me. Distance was supposed to make things safer. All it did was make me miss him. The dream felt too real. I woke up with my heart racing, sheets twisted around my legs, breath coming fast like I'd been running. For a second, I didn't know where I was, only that something had followed me out of sleep. I sat up, pressing a hand to my chest. His name was on my lips. That scared me more than the dream itself. The room was empty. The door closed. The house quiet in the deep, dangerous way it only got after midnight. I told myself it was nothing. Just my mind filling in gaps I refused to face while awake. Still, I checked the hallway. His door was shut. Light off. Relief and disappointment tangled in my chest. The next morning, I couldn't look at him. At breakfast, his presence felt heavier than usual. I flinched when his knee brushed mine under the table. He froze too, then slowly moved away, like we'd both been burned. Later, I found him on the back porch, staring out into the yard. "You're avoiding me," he said without turning. I swallowed. "So are you." Silence stretched. Honest. Uncomfortable. "I dreamed about you," I admitted, the words barely a whisper. He finally faced me. His expression darkened, not with amusement, but something deeper. Troubled. "That can't happen again," he said. "I didn't choose it." "I know," he replied. His voice dropped. "That's what scares me." That night, lying awake, I realized the truth. Even in my sleep, I was already losing control. I woke up because the house made a sound. Not loud. Just wrong. The kind of noise you notice only when you're already half awake. I lay still, listening, heart thudding softly as footsteps crossed the hallway outside my door. They stopped. My breath caught. I didn't move. Didn't turn on the light. I stared at the ceiling, counting seconds, convincing myself it was nothing, someone getting water, a door settling, my imagination still tangled in dreams. Then came the knock. So quiet I almost missed it. I sat up. Yeah. Silence. The door didn't open. But I felt him there, standing on the other side, close enough that the air seemed to shift. I couldn't sleep, his voice came through, low and controlled. Neither could I. But I didn't say it. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered. "I know." Another pause. Longer this time. "Dangerous." "I just needed to hear your voice," he said. "To make sure you were awake. That it wasn't just me." My fingers curled into the sheets. "And now?" "And now I leave," he replied. He didn't, at least not right away. I imagined him there, hand hovering near the handle, fighting something he didn't want to admit existed. My pulse raced at the thought. "Good night," he finally said. Footsteps retreated down the hallway. I lay back slowly, staring into the dark, heart pounding like I'd just escaped something, or missed it. The door stayed closed. But I knew then, with unsettling certainty, next time, it wouldn't. We stopped pretending after that night. Not openly. Not in front of anyone. But the careful distance he'd built began to crack, small things first. Lingering looks. Pauses that lasted a beat too long. Silence that felt heavier than words. I caught him watching me more often. Across the living room. From the kitchen doorway. Like he was measuring something he didn't want to name. One evening, the house emptied out early. My mother and his father went out, their voices fading down the driveway. The door clicked shut. Alone. The realization settled between us like a third presence. "I can't keep doing this," he said suddenly, standing near the window, back to me. "Doing what?" I asked, though I already knew. He turned slowly. His expression wasn't guarded anymore. It was raw. "Tired. Thinking about you when I shouldn't," he said. "Waking up in the middle of the night because I swear I hear you breathe." My throat tightened. "Then stop." "I've tried." The honesty in his voice stole my breath. We stood there, facing each other, the space between us unbearably small. Not touching. Not stepping back either. "I know this is wrong," he said quietly, "but every time you look at me like that I forget why it's supposed to matter." I didn't trust my voice, so I shook my head instead. Denial felt safer. He took one step closer. "Tell me to leave," he said. "And I will." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. His jaw tightened. He nodded once, like he'd expected it. "Then don't look at me like that," he whispered. He walked past me, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. This time, neither of us pretended it was accidental. I stood there long after he'd gone, heart racing, mind unraveling. That night, sleep didn't come easily. And when it finally did, it felt like something was already waiting for me in the dark. I woke up because the room felt different. Too quiet. Too close. My breath stuttered before my eyes even opened, because the air wasn't empty anymore. Someone was there. Not standing. Not looming. Kneeling. The realization sent a shiver through me as my eyes adjusted to the dark. He was right there, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, the steady control in the way he held himself. My stepbrother. My fingers clenched the sheets as our eyes met. His gaze was dark, focused, undone in a way he never allowed himself to be during the day. You were dreaming, he said softly, like it was an excuse. Like it was permission. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. The house was silent, wrapped in sleep, and suddenly everything felt dangerous, every breath, every second he stayed. I should have pushed him away. I should have demanded answers. I should have told him to leave. Instead, I whispered his name. He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for days. He didn't rush. Didn't climb onto the bed. Didn't touch me where it would cross the final line. He placed his hands on my thighs instead, firm, deliberate, grounding me like he was afraid I might disappear. My breath came uneven. I hated that he noticed. You always wake up like this, he murmured. Like your body knows before you do. I wasn't calling for you, I whispered. His thumb pressed lightly, just enough to make me tense. You don't have to say it. The closeness was unbearable. His face was level with me, eyes never leaving mine, like he was studying every reaction, every hitch of breath, every small movement I failed to control. Footsteps creaked faintly somewhere in the house. We froze. His hands tightened instinctively, protective, possessive, then slowly loosened, like he was reminding himself where we were. I shouldn't be here, he whispered. But you are, I said. The word settled between us, heavy and final. He stayed kneeling, choosing restraint instead of retreat. Choosing control instead of denial. His fingers brushed my wrist as he finally pulled back, a touch that lingered longer than it should have. This is the last time, he said quietly. We both knew it was a lie. When he left, the door closing without a sound, I lay there shaking, not from fear, but from everything he hadn't done. From everything he almost had. I didn't fall back asleep. I didn't need to. Because I knew now. I wasn't dreaming anymore. He didn't come near my room again. That was the first thing I noticed. No footsteps at night. No pause outside my door. No presence humming just beneath the silence. The house felt normal again, and I hated it for that. During the day, he became careful in a way that hurt. Too polite. Too distant. Too controlled. At breakfast, he spoke only when spoken to. If I entered a room, he found something else to do. If our paths crossed in the hallway, he stepped aside like I was a stranger instead of the person who'd watched him kneel in the dark. I told myself this was good. It felt like punishment. The guilt settled in quietly. Not loud or dramatic, just heavy. It clung to every shared space, every family moment that should have been simple. I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror one afternoon and barely recognized myself. Tired eyes. Restless mouth. Like my body was still waiting for something my mind refused to ask for. That night, I heard him arguing softly in his room. Not on the phone. With himself. I can't, he said under his breath. I pressed my palm against my door, heart racing, knowing he was on the other side of the wall, awake, fighting the same thing I was. The next day, someone asked if I was seeing anyone. Before I could answer, he looked up. The tension in his jaw was instant. Uncontrolled. No, I said quickly. I'm not. He didn't relax. Later, when I finally cornered him in the hallway, I asked the question that had been burning in my chest. Are you pretending it didn't happen, I said, or are you trying to forget? He met my eyes then, raw, honest, exhausted. I think about it every second, he said. That's why I have to stop. And if I don't want you to? His breath caught. Just once. That, he said quietly, is exactly the problem. He walked away before I could say anything else. But I knew the truth now. Distance wasn't saving us. It was only making the fall worse. It happened on a night that should have been ordinary. Dinner finished. Dishes stacked. The television murmuring in the background while my mother laughed at something unimportant. Everything looked normal from the outside, too normal. That was what broke me. I found him in the garage, standing in the dim light, staring at nothing. His sleeves were rolled up. His hands were clenched like he was holding himself together by force alone. "You can't keep avoiding me," I said. He didn't turn. "I'm not avoiding you. You won't look at me." Silence. Then a slow exhale. "If I do," he said quietly, "I won't stop." That sent a shiver through me, fear and relief tangled together. "You already didn't." He turned then. Really turned. His eyes were dark, tired, honest in a way that stripped the room bare. "I crossed a line," he said. "I shouldn't have been in your room." "And yet," I said, stepping closer, "you were." The space between us shrank. Not touching, but close enough that I felt his warmth, his restraint humming like a live wire. "You think walking away makes this disappear?" I asked. "Because it doesn't. I still wake up thinking you're there." His jaw tightened. "Don't." "Why?" I whispered. "Because you do too." That did it. He reached out, not to touch me, but to brace himself against the wall beside my head. Trapped, but not claimed. His breath was uneven now, control slipping. "If we keep going," he said, voice rough, "there's no pretending after." I looked up at him, heart pounding. "I'm tired of pretending." For a moment, everything balanced on the edge of that truth. One choice. One step. Then the door from the house creaked open. We broke apart instantly. He stepped back, rebuilding his walls with frightening speed. When he spoke again, his voice was steady, but his eyes gave him away. "This can't happen again," he said. But this time, the lie didn't convince either of us. We didn't talk about the garage. That was the unspoken rule the next morning: pretend the tension hadn't almost snapped, pretend we were still learning how to be a family. It was harder than before. Every glance lingered. Every shared silence felt deliberate. Like we were both aware that something fragile had already cracked, and one wrong move would shatter it completely. That night, the house emptied out again. A last-minute dinner invitation. Coats grabbed. Keys jingling. My mother's voice floated down the hallway, cheerful and unaware. "We'll be back late," she said. The door closed. The sound echoed. I didn't plan to find him. My feet just carried me. Down the hall. Past his room. To the small space at the end of the house where the lights were dim and the walls felt too close. He was already there. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. Neither of us moved. The silence stretched until it hurt. His eyes dropped to my hands, then back to my face, searching, warning, wanting all at once. "This is the last chance," he said. "If we do this it changes everything." I stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the tension in him, the restraint holding by a thread. "It already has," I whispered. He didn't touch me right away. That was the moment we crossed the line, not with contact, but with permission. With the way his hand finally closed around my wrist, firm but gentle, like he was asking and answering at the same time. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. When his forehead rested briefly against mine, the breath we shared felt heavier than anything else that night. Dangerous. Intimate. Real. We broke apart at the sound of a car passing outside. Reality again. He released me slowly, like letting go hurt more than holding on. "This stays between us," he said. "No one can know." I nodded, even as my chest ached. As I walked back to my room, one thought followed me like a promise and a threat all at once: we hadn't just crossed a line. We'd erased it. We made rules the next morning. Not out loud. Not all at once. They appeared in the quiet spaces between us, unspoken, fragile, already breaking. Don't touch in public. Don't linger too long. Don't look at each other like that. At breakfast, he passed me the salt without our fingers meeting. At dinner, we sat on opposite sides of the table. Anyone watching would have thought we were finally adjusting. They would have been wrong. At night, the house changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. A pause outside my door. A shadow moving past his. The soft sound of a floorboard that told me he was awake too. We never knocked. Never crossed the hallway again. But sometimes, through the wall, I heard his breath. Slow. Controlled. Like he was holding something back. One evening, he found me alone in the laundry room. The door half closed. The hum of the machine filling the silence. "This has to stay quiet," he said. "I know." His eyes dropped to my mouth before he could stop himself. "If anyone finds out." "They won't," I said. "They can't." The lie felt rehearsed already. He stepped closer, not touching, never touching, but close enough that I felt the rule bend. His voice dropped. "If you ask me to stop," he said, "I will." I didn't ask. The machine beeped. The moment ended. He stepped away first, as always. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and realized the truth beneath all our rules: they weren't there to protect us. They were there to make this last. And somewhere in the dark, I knew. Rules whispered are easier to break. It nearly happened on a normal afternoon. That was the worst part. My mother called my name from the kitchen, asking for help with something small, something harmless. I stepped out of my room too quickly and almost collided with him in the hallway. Too close. We froze. For half a second, the rules disappeared. His hand hovered near my waist out of instinct, muscle memory stronger than caution. My breath caught, and his eyes dropped, then snapped back up, sharp with warning. Footsteps approached. "Hey," my mother said, appearing at the end of the hall. "You two are getting along well, huh?" "Yes," he said immediately. Calm. Easy. Convincing. I nodded a beat too late. She smiled, satisfied, and turned back toward the kitchen. The moment she was gone, the air rushed back into my lungs. He stepped away from me like he'd been burned. "That was close," I whispered. "Too close," he replied. That night, he didn't linger outside my door. He didn't pass my room at all. The distance felt deliberate, punishment, protection, or both. I found him later in the living room, lights off, staring at nothing. "If she had seen us," he said quietly, "this would be over." I sat on the arm of the couch, close enough to feel him tense. "Is that what you want?" He looked up at me, eyes conflicted. "No." The honesty in that single word scared me more than any near discovery. "Then stop pulling away," I said softly. He stood, towering over me for a moment before stepping back, choosing restraint again. "We're playing a dangerous game," he said. I watched him walk away, knowing the truth we were both avoiding: the danger wasn't being found out. It was how much we'd lose if we were. He tried to end it quietly. That was the cruelest part. No argument. No dramatic confession. Just distance, carefully measured, painfully polite, like he was packing something away piece by piece and hoping I wouldn't notice. He stopped waiting in shared spaces. Stopped staying up late. If I entered a room, he left it before the silence could stretch. I let it happen for 2 days. On the third, I didn't. I found him in the study, lights low, papers spread out like distractions. He looked up when I closed the door behind me, really looked, and something in his expression cracked. "This has to stop," he said before I could speak. "Before it ruins everything." "Everything?" I asked. "Or just us?" He stood abruptly, turning away. "I'm doing this for you. That's not your choice to make." He faced me again, eyes dark with frustration, with something that looked too much like fear. "You don't understand what this would cost you." "I understand exactly what it costs me when you pull away." Silence slammed between us. I stepped closer. "Not touching. Never touching anymore." "Say you don't want me," I said. "Say it, and I'll leave." His jaw clenched. His hands curled at his sides. "I can't," he said quietly. That was all the answer I needed. I turned to go, heart pounding, not because I was rejected, but because I wasn't. His hand caught my wrist at the last second. Not hard. Not claiming. Asking. He released me just as quickly, like he'd burned himself. "Please," he said. "Give me time." I nodded, even though every part of me knew the truth, this wasn't ending. It was only being delayed. And whatever was waiting on the other side of that delay was going to hurt. Time didn't fix anything. It only sharpened it. Days passed where we barely spoke, just enough to stay convincing. Just enough to keep the house calm. But every silence felt deliberate now, like we were both counting down to something neither of us wanted to name. I caught him watching me when he thought I wouldn't notice. Not with hunger. With conflict. That was worse. One evening, rain trapped us inside. The house felt smaller, the walls closer, the sound of water pressing in like it was listening. My parents were out again, ordinary plans, ordinary trust. He found me in the kitchen. Not by accident this time. "You said you'd give me time," he said. "I did. And you're still here." I met his gaze. "So are you." The truth settled between us, heavy and undeniable. "This isn't just a mistake anymore," he said quietly. "It's a choice." I stepped closer, close enough that there was no pretending this was coincidence. "Then make it." For a long moment, he didn't move. Didn't touch me. Just stood there, breathing like the decision weighed more than anything he'd ever carried. Then he nodded once. Slow. Certain. "Okay," he said. "But if we do this we stop lying to ourselves." The word sent a shiver through me, not fear, but recognition. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The way his hand rested briefly at my waist said more than anything else could. A promise. A line drawn and crossed at the same time. Later, alone in my room, I stared at the ceiling, heart still racing. We hadn't been reckless. We'd been honest. And somehow, that felt far more dangerous. The house felt different after that. Not louder. Not quieter. Just aware. Mornings returned to routine, coffee, soft conversation, familiar footsteps, but underneath it all was something steady and undeniable. We weren't pretending anymore. We were choosing when to be careful, not why. He didn't avoid me now. He also didn't touch me. Not where anyone could see. Not where it would be obvious. But sometimes, when we passed in the hallway, his fingers would brush mine, brief, intentional. Enough to remind me. Enough to steady me. One night, we ended up on the balcony again. The same place where this had started. The city lights blinked below us, distant and indifferent. "I don't regret it," I said quietly. He leaned against the railing beside me. "Close. Not touching." "Neither do I." That honesty settled something inside me. "We don't know how this ends," he continued. "But I know I don't want to pretend you don't exist." I turned to him. "Then don't." He looked at me the way he always had when the walls were listening, careful, serious, full of meaning he didn't rush. "We'll be quiet," he said. We'll be patient. And if it ever becomes too much, we'll face it, I finished. He nodded. No promises. No perfect future. Just truth. Later that night, lying in my room, the house wrapped in sleep, I felt calm for the first time since the wedding. Not because the danger was gone, but because we'd stopped running from it. The house was quiet. It always had been. And it still knew our names.